So remember how in last week's video, I shared with you how I left my 9-to-5 to move to Asia? Well, as promised, in this video, I'm actually going to be sharing with you my story of what happened next. So, as any story, and I think this is a big thing to note in any person you ever connect with, is most people you talk to will not have had just a linear story, or just that they woke up one day and everything changed. There's always these key pivotal moments that led them to where they are today. Especially I find often when you talk to anyone who is an entrepreneur or who has started a business. So when I was in Bali, when I was in Indonesia, and through that time, because I traveled to some different places in that journey that I was inspired and led to for different reasons, on that journey is when I really had the clarity of what I wanted to do next. At that time, I knew I actually wanted to go back into working for another company, but I wanted to incorporate these different aspects. I wanted to work in biotech. I really wanted to work with a really visionary person that was very successful that I could learn a lot from. And I wanted it to be a company that had a strong mission I deeply cared about. Well, that's where I ended up. I ended up in working for a really powerful company that I learned a lot from. But at some point on that journey, even though, again, I had all of the metrics of success, I now had learned so much and was working with people that honestly just completely expanded my awareness. They woke me up to really understanding myself as a visionary in a bigger way. And that heart whisper came again where I knew it was now time to actually leave this job and go and start my business. So for the rest of this video, I want to share with you how I left, the actual tactics, like how I left my 9-to-5 in Silicon Valley to start my own business. So it's so big because what can happen so easily, especially if you have a job that many people respect, if you have the job that is making really good money, and if you have people that you enjoy working with, and that, in my case, I had a boss who I highly respected and was learning a lot from and felt very fortunate to have the opportunity to have learned from. It's very important that these 4 things I'm going to share with you, I think were key things that gave me that foundation, that courage, that support to ensure that I was able to really follow my own path. Because it can become really easy in those moments to now, because when people are presenting good opportunities your way and shiny kind of opportunities, to not follow your truth. And I think that's when I talk to most clients I have, when I meet a lot of entrepreneurs who even start businesses that don't actually align with them. This is the big issue, is often that they've kind of ended up following these shiny opportunities and didn't have that true connection to their energy and what would actually be most aligned for them long term. And so what I'm going to share is, when I was leaving, I was very intentional. I didn't just wake up one day and just leave, right? I don't think it's actually a good thing to run away from something. I'm always for running towards something. And that's why the first thing I'd recommend to, if you're thinking about, okay, I want to leave my job, I really want to go and be an entrepreneur, or you want to start that passion project, or there's something in your heart that you want to do. For me, that journey in Indonesia also really made me wake up to, wow, I really love entrepreneurship. I'm really big about that. I really enjoy solving problems. And that is all entrepreneurship is. That is what creating a business is finding a problem that you're deeply passionate and curious about, and just being obsessed with helping the people that you're going to serve with that problem, by helping to solve that problem. And so I think the first thing is you need to have a vision. You need to have some understanding, a really strong sense of who you are, and have at least some support on figuring that out if you don't know it now. So that way you can have a vision of what kind of business do you actually want to start? What problem are you deeply curious and passionate about doing? And actually having that kind of a little just of an initial action plan of what that will look like. I think if you can have just some of the basics of your business plan lined up, that can really set you up with that foundation. So when you do leave, you're not just floundering. So I think that's what you see a lot, and what I've witnessed a lot with clients who have come to me is then they followed the leap, they had the courage, which is a huge part of it. But then now they're feeling overwhelmed. Okay, I thought I needed to do this thing, or I thought this was the type of business I wanted to create, but they didn't have that vision really properly in place. The second thing I would really recommend checking out that I did that made a world of difference is get radically honest about your finances. It's always the part that no one really wants to talk about, but money is magic. Money is such a gift to have, and we need to know our relationship with it. You need to understand, okay, how much money do you need to have for a certain period of time? And we're all in different circumstances, right? It depends on where you live. It depends on if you have a family, if you're a mom. You have to be really honest about what is it that you really need to get by. And I would also really recommend having some strong buffer space for where you can just, depending on what kind of business, and that's why the vision is really helpful, but having some space for investment and a little bit of wiggle room is key, just because that way I find that to really succeed in the entrepreneurship space, if you go into it with complete stress cycle, fight or flight, without enough money to feed your family, to feed yourself, and you don't feel that support, it can be a lot harder and it's really difficult to tap into your creativity. And so I would recommend having that sense of the roadmap a bit on what you have in your bank account, what you need, so you can also set yourself up. Maybe that's also, if you're in your 9-to-5, how you can ensure to save your money. That was a big thing I did because I knew I wanted to go the entrepreneurial route. I was very mindful to save money in certain ways and to find ways to allocate my energy and my resources to plan for those investments to come. The third thing I will also say is I think it's really helpful to have a board of advisors in your life. So a select group of people who you really trust them. You trust that they understand who you are, and a very small group. You do not need a lot of perspectives, but just a few people who have different perspectives. And I really recommend getting different perspectives in place, people who really see you for different reasons. And I would recommend specifically in that to find a board of advisors, someone who has worked in the industry you're wanting to go into, someone who has experience in that specific field, because it all sounds good and well, this idea of what you want to do, but it's good to get the inside scoop of what it actually means to create a business or to be in that specific space. That way you don't go in blindsided, because I think there's also a lot of ways where we can kind of paint this idealized picture of what it would be like to be an entrepreneur, but I'm the first to give you that practical, fierce truth, which is like, you need to have that grit and that excitement and that ability that no matter what comes your way, you're so in and you have some of those support systems. So that person will also be a good person to have as a resource and someone who supports you on that journey when you go into that first stage as an entrepreneur. And the last thing I will say is I think it's really helpful to just do a little bit of an inventory of what you're going to be willing to give up, what you're willing to sacrifice for your dreams. And this one is one I think I actually did a good job in actually mapping this out back at that time, and it really set me up. Because I think especially in line with finances, especially in alignment with your time, and as you know, I'm all about energy budgeting, so you have to get honest, like what are you going to be willing to spend to stop spending money on? Maybe I've known entrepreneurs who had to sell their car and were willing to just take public transit, or you have to find these different things. I had to, for periods of time, just I wouldn't go out. I wouldn't eat out. I didn't drink because I wanted all of that money that I was spending was going into other investments for my business. It's also knowing certain events and family gatherings or friends events or just different things that you're no longer going to be able to go to for a period of time because your energy needs to be focused in certain places. So I think it's really important if you can at least map out about 3. If you're someone who shops a lot, this was another big one for me. I feel like people now in my life are laughing because they're going, Lex, I think it's probably about time that you maybe got some new things in your closet, because similarly, right? I was investing my energy into other things. And now is that moment where I'm going, okay, maybe it's time I get myself a few new clothing items and spruce up my wardrobe a bit. But for me, that was another area where I was, I needed to let go of kind of buying some of those things to invest my energy where it needed to go and my resources. So those are the 4 things that I would recommend that really helped me. But you need to be most honest to what works well for you, as I'm all about, we're all beautifully unique. And I'm never going to come here and tell you like, this is the only way to be successful, because I think that's BS. And I'm not that person that wants to feed it. But I also want you to know the entrepreneurial journey, yes, takes courage. And that's what I learned from that time in that first story of last week's video, where I learned that experience of me moving abroad, that experience of just continually showing up for myself, especially in the messy moments, was so pivotal and really supported me and supports me every day and where I am today. But also, I just want to say that who you are today is enough. So I also think as entrepreneurs, it's also very classic that we can overthink ourselves and think that there's going to be some perfect day where the mic will drop and you'll be ready. I want to say to you, when I left my job, especially because it was my dream job and I really respected those I worked with, and It was messy. There were a lot of tears. There was a lot of moments where I could have questioned myself a lot, and there was a lot of reasons rationally why I could have decided to not go and start my own business at that time. But in my heart, that's where my courage muscle had to be expressed even more in ways I never expected. But thanks to that journey I had taken to Indonesia, I had really built up that muscle to be prepared for that day. And I think those 4 things I just shared with you really gave me that foundation to trust myself and to go for it. So I would love for you to share with me if there's any part of my story that you deeply relate with or that resonates with where you're at today or where you're wanting to go. And if there's actually any of these 4 that I just shared, these 4 things that you're currently thinking you're trying to work on or you want to be working towards, please share with me in the comments and I will happily get in there. And if you ask any specific questions, I will do my best to actually give you some feedback. And I would love to connect with you on Instagram, LinkedIn, Clubhouse, wherever you love to communicate, because what I am so passionate about is seeing more female entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs supported to really start, scale businesses that feel good, that really align with your purpose, and more than anything, align with your greatest life and business asset, which is your energy. So more than anything, I hope that you have a fierce day and feel empowered to take action because you, my friend, matter.